Yo, dudes, what's going on with y'all? Welcome back to Chris Reads. This week we're going to go ahead and take a look at The Lonely Heart Attack Club, a quaint little thing on Audible that was released about midway through December. If you don't want me to pick things randomly off of Audible, then please go ahead and leave a comment down below about stuff you want me to review, because my review trough is empty, my dudes. I got nada. It's the reason I keep telling you to leave a comment at the end of the videos. It's not because I'm trying to whore myself out, it's because I really want your suggestions. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. So, the book begins when we are introduced to Jack, who is helping out his grandfather around the house with things like notes and just kind of making sure his grandfather's taking care of himself. And it's actually a nice way to paint Jack in a sympathetic light without being really heavy-handed or awkward. And it's actually kind of left at a sweet moment whenever we realize they have a loving/teasing kind of relationship going on. And Jack's grandfather actually has a date, and Jack fears it's a scam, but he encourages his grandfather to go anyway just out of concern for the old man's feelings and his blood pressure. So, I mean, well done to the author for it. It was actually gripping and engaging, and it was a good way to start everything off. Also, the audio version of this book is narrated by an Irishman, and I don't actually know if the book is supposed to be set in Ireland or not, but it does make it more endearing. Granted, that could be because I'm American, and Americans like the Irish, but whatever, I do enjoy it. So we get to see a little bit more of Jack's life as he's kind of noticing his body start to age on him. We get introduced to members of his community like the gay mailman and Emma, who helps him run a failing coffee shop, and she actually knows her customers really well, and if one of them doesn't show up at their usual time, she sometimes goes around to check on him just to make sure everything's okay. And it actually paints it as like a real community of people, which is good because that's what it should be. You know, their lives may not be the most interesting things in the world, but they are the characters of the story, and therefore, even though it's a slice of life, if you want to call that setting, they are painted as actual people and an actual community of people, and it's actually very good. This is the way that it should be done. And sure, my mind may be screaming at me that some of the dialogue seems forced, but overall it's good, so I really don't care. So the next chapter actually comes out of left field and hits pretty hard. We're shown the life of Derek, who's one of the regulars at Jack's coffee shop, and we get a kind of glimpse into his life as he's being hounded non-stop by supposed charity scammers for money. And he's kind of helped and given what he could, but he's just being harassed by them non-stop. We know that his wife is gone. He doesn't get the chance to see his grandchildren because they moved away from him. And it's actually really sad, but again, it's very human, and it's very you connect to the character, which of course is the goal in it. And it's way more impactful than it would be just to say, hey, here's this old guy that's like reaching the end of his limit. Instead, this is a character that we seem to know and briefly kind of get a sense of how his life has gone against him. It's actually a very gripping and engaging moment. This is all leading up to Derek's attempt to hang himself, which I will admit hit me pretty hard for personal reasons from my past. And it actually kind of comes to a head when Emma knocks on his door, you know, just trying to make sure everything's alright with him because he didn't show up for his normal morning cup of coffee. And whenever Derek's like, you know, how did you find out where I lived? And was like, well, I just kind of knew the area you lived in, so I knocked on a few doors and people pointed out your house to me. You must have a lot of friends. And I admit that, like, when she said that, I straight up cried a bit. Like, it was actually a really touching moment. Granted, that's probably one of those things that hits me a little bit harder than the average person just because of my own personal connection to it. But the fact is, I did connect to it. And that, I think, says something about the writing. So, well done, you sadistic bastard. So Emma resolves to help Derek with his issues, which kind of helps kill his resolve to commit suicide, and even joins a group for the elderly that Emma and Jack are planning to put together. It's worth mentioning that suicide is actually a far more complex problem than that, and usually requires either professional help or care. But still, it was a very touching and endearing moment. So, you know, well done for it. So as the story moves on, Jack actually manages to score a date with the attractive florist next door, and he goes with Emma to help him pick out a new shirt, even though Emma actually has feelings for Jack. So love triangle happens. Anyway, we have a nice little comedy moment happen in the changing room whenever Jack is naked and gets his finger stuck in a hole, and I fully admit that I didn't really see where this scene was going until Emma puts lip balm on his finger, and Jack tells her to make sure he's good and lubed up before she pushes it. Loud enough for a store manager to overhear them. I'm also not proud to admit it did make me laugh. And so Jack goes on his date, and it's revealed that the florist is actually a lesbian, which is kind of a fun moment, and she has a crush on Emma. And then Jack goes home that night and realizes he actually likes Emma, and weirdly the book just kind of skips over the confession moment. Instead, they kind of just get together, and while that was like predictable to happen, still something that would have been nice to see. It's kind of like if KSI and Logan Paul had never fought and just declared that they were going to have a tie. Although I suppose that would have been more honest. Anyway, the book continues on, and turns out that the Lonely Heart Attack Club, as so it's called, actually does end up helping a lot of the members of the older community. Kind of helps make them aware of scams, and helps kind of get them together, and even do speed dating kind of thing. And they attempt to break a world record for the world's longest flower wall, which doesn't end up quite working out, but it's still kind of a really sweet moment. And it ends slightly kind of on a bittersweet thing, actually, whenever one of the members dies of a heart attack. But, I mean, still overall, really, it's a nice, simple little story, and it's a great way to kill about 4 or 5 hours. I really enjoyed it, honestly. Anyway, my personal score is 8 out of 10. Let's go ahead and take a look at that bingo card. And while we doubted around a little bit, we actually did not hit bingo. But, hey, who knows? Maybe we'll hit bingo with the next book. Anyway, that is all for this episode of Chris Reads. If you would like to see me review something else, leave a comment down below and let me know. Until then, drink plenty of water, tell your parents that you love them, and stroke your mustache at night.